What? Hey, folks, welcome out the Nerdcast. Happy New Year's.
Happy New Year, everyone.
Hey, Scarlett, how you been? How's your New Year's going?
It's going great. I'm feeling really optimistic about this year.
Yeah, well, hopefully 23... Well, don't screw us over. Don't jinx us. The past 3 years has been nothing but catastrophic, world-ending pandemonium after another. You know.
Yeah. We've had some fun in there though too.
Yeah. LARPing, Ren fairs, all that stuff. How have you been keeping hopeful? Well, how do you keep hopeful in all these dark crap going on all over the place?
Yeah, so I think I'm kind of a functionalist, so I always just think, like, what can I do about the world or about the issue? And so I usually just think about the people in my life that I'm trying to impact in a positive way.
I like that.
And really focus on that.
Some people say there's a huge misunderstanding of functionalism, if you ask me. People often think it just means the end justifies the means, but you know.
No.
Yeah, that's just a philosophical argument a lot of people have. But that's not the point of today. We're talking about hope.
Yes.
What film trilogy do you think has the most hope in it? Like, what show has given you the most hope that you have internalized and lived by?
Demon Slayer.
Star Wars.
Ooh, that's a good one too.
I mean, but let's face it, Tolkien, that guy, like, the whole point of Tolkien, like the speech Sam gives at the end of, like, the second movie. How did you feel about that?
I mean, I think Lord of the Rings, I grew up on that, and that was one of my very first inspirations that gave me a lot of hope as a child. Yeah. So it always holds a special place in my heart.
How do you think, what are things you would say to how people can have hope in a world that's going crazy? Like practices they can do, mental exercises?
Well, I really enjoy reading and like movies and shows. I think it's nice to like see those examples lived out and then apply them to your life. Like
modern day archetypes.
Exactly. Like Demon Slayer. I look at Tanjiro face against a demon that's like 20 times as strong as him, and he still does it. And it makes me want to have the courage to face the demons in our world.
Metaphorically and physically, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, let's face it, media has done such a good job of portraying the hero's journey and how we all internalize that, you know? We're all the monomyth. I've read Joseph Campbell's Heroes of a Thousand Faces.
Yes, I love that book.
Do you think that book can be used for, like, how to have hope in the realities we find ourselves in?
I'm sure. Like, I think books can offer a lot of hope, like, and especially seeing the way that, like, humans are more united than we think. That we all kind of, like, understand and work with similar concepts. Like, every human knows love and loss and hatred, and we all understand those. Yeah,
I would say it's easy to be negative. It's easy to be a pessimist. You know, it's easy to be, the world sucks, why should I even exist? You either become a nihilist or absurdist, you know?
Yeah.
And I don't like those paths, you know? I don't think, like, if you don't have hope for reality and everything is just, like, monotonous getting up and eating, what's the point in living, you know?
Right.
Like, you need things to live for. You need a cause. You need ideals, hopes, you know, dreams. And how do you think what's a good way to go about that, in your opinion?
Yeah, I think, like, you're really onto something with ideals and, like, morals and living up to those standards. So I think, like, setting those for yourself, because everyone's different.
Yeah.
You know, so for me, my biggest thing is, like, bringing joy to the world. That's what I want. So, like, everything, even if I'm sad and struggling, like, I'm going to smile. I'm going to be nice. I'm going to care about people because I want to be the kind of person that doesn't have regrets when I die.
Right.
I don't want to hate who I am, and that's what I need to do to
I like that.
who I am.
One of my favorite YouTubers I grew up with since high school. This is me nerdy as heck, but just vibe with me.
Yep.
It's called RB and the Chief. It's a machinima series about a Master Chief and an Arbiter action figure having adventures on Xbox Live.
Cool.
But that's how it started off in high school. But then it completely morphed into something else. By the later seasons, the Arbiter is an emo, like, emotionally distraught, like, devastated individual, and like they hate their existence, they're becoming nihilistic, they're rotting away, and the entire show is a metaphor for the main creator and how he went through suicidal depression, how he was trying to find meaning in life. He went from, like, you know, being agnostic, being spiritual, and he found meaning in his day-to-day life. He realized, people told him on his YouTube channel, your show makes me not want to kill myself. Your show saves me from, like, thinking all life is hopeless. And he even made this meta sort of narrative For the action figures, I actually find out the creator's their god. He created their universe. The entire show exists in his imagination. Meta as hell.
Yeah.
Meta as hell. And he says, like, do the good. And that's maybe that's what, and he, like, goes on to spiel, like, what God is doing the good, you know? Bringing joy into people's lives. You make a difference in people's lives. Struggle to survive. What does me in the first world have to, like, what can that tell me in the first world, you know? You know what I'm trying to say here?
Yeah, I think that it can always be worse, but I do also think suffering is kind of like gas. Like, it'll fill up the space. So, like,
agreed.
No matter how much, quote unquote, how much suffering that you have, like, it'll always feel really big to you.
Yeah.
So, like, I don't want to minimize, like, oh, well, like, my suffering doesn't matter because there's people starving. Like, everyone's suffering matters.
Yeah, but it's something. Yeah,
but you can use it to be like, oh, you know what? Like, I'm grateful. Like, I
gratitude.
Have food.
Yes,
I have a place to live.
I have a house on my shoulder. I'm going to college, and that's kind of my issue with a lot of people. I feel like a lot of people don't realize how good they have it, you know, and they just they feel like, oh, I'm so, you know, my life sucks. I mean, I'm so screwed over. What are you doing right now? How good is your life? You live in a first world country, you know. If you want to make a difference, like I would tell people like that, do community service, you know, help the homeless, help autistic kids. I mean, if you feel like you're not doing anything in life, realize you could give back what you have to some people that really need it, you know?
Exactly. I think, like, society wants to take away our power and convince us we're powerless, but, like, really, like, you're running your life. I'm in control of my life. Like, we're running the show. If you don't like something, we do have the power to change, like, to some degree.
Yeah, we're co-creators. We're co-creators.
Exactly.
You know,
I love that word.
Yeah, I mean, that's a spiritual mentality I live by, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, what are spiritual practices you think people can do to like practice hopefulness and gratitude and optimism for the future of the world?
Yeah, like one thing I love doing is starting out my day and I list 3 things I'm grateful about and 3 things I love about myself and 3 things I love about the world.
I like
just
that.
To like cue my mind in, you know, because it's confirmation bias. If you believe the world's a good place, you'll find reasons to see that it's a good place.
Well,
so if you start on that note in your day, that can help.
I mean, a little mental help and gymnastic I do in my head. Okay, we're in the middle of a new Cold War, but we didn't get nuked back in the 70s. World War II was way worse than anything even our parents' generation made it through, and the world's still turning, you know? The world's still turning, even though it's on fire.
Yes.
Still turning, and it's going to keep doing that to the end of time, you know?
Yeah, I love that perspective. I think about that all the time with, like, my ancestors, and it's like people and
historical perspective
have suffered for all time, but they still found joy. They still found love and community.
Even in the Dark Ages, people found ways to keep entertained. They read books. They had their imagination.
Yeah.
Ultimately, I think I'm gonna sound biased as hell here. I play a lot of Xbox. I am a massive nerd, but there's something we don't appreciate so much, and that's the childhood sense of imagination.
Yes.
That's the greatest source of joy. Okay.
Truly.
And I use it even to this day to keep my life bearable. I feel like I'm in community, okay? Yeah. I live my life like I'm in a college sitcom. Having that narrative in my head prevents me from going insane, okay?
Yes. I think imagination is hope. It's like our ability of our brain to think outside of what's right in front of us and imagine a better world.
Yeah.
Like, those things are completely intertwined, if you ask me.
Yeah. Something I would say about so aside from this, the mental practice people I can do. Let's talk about the ecosystem. Like when people are dealing with ecological depression, the world going to crap around us, nukes, all that stuff. What are ways you would tell people to not give up and that there is some hope? What are things that have given you hope in the past few years that can like keep people on the right path and not, you know? Answer, yeah.
Yeah, I feel that a lot. Like, I'll definitely get that, like, eco-depression, but what helps me is remembering that we are incredibly creative and resourceful as a species, and that technology exists and could exist to reverse the effects.
Yeah.
And so for me, it's more about trying to empower people to, like, actually make a change.
Actually caring about the ecosystem.
Yeah, how do we put money towards these things? Because
Green
the
economy.
technology is
Green
there.
Economy, yeah.
You know, so how do we support that? How do we grow that? And then I'm also kind of like, well, if we fail, we fail. You know, and that's all there is to it. But like, all you can do is try.
I mean, for me, another technique I used for hope is faith. You know, spirituality that helps me get through things. And there's something to be said about communal like religiosity.
Oh, absolutely.
Community religiosity gives, being part of a spiritual community, whether that be Buddhist, Christian, Jewish, can give you so much to live for, and you can be so active in your local community. That's why I'm still a Christian anymore. It's not even so much dogma or doctrine. I'm a Christian because of the community. I'm Christian because this does something for people. This helps transform people, gives hope in local areas. Like my church, I go to Bethel downtown. Like we have one of the most thriving homeless shelters in the entire downtown area. You know what really got me through COVID? I saw all the Christian churches, mostly Protestant, here in Madison during the pandemic. They were giving food to the homeless. They were having massive food pantries. There was a non-denominational pastor who went off and like chopped down 12 Christmas trees and gave them to unprivileged families during the pandemic. Okay.
Love that.
So when people say like, okay, yeah, religion, yeah, look what the local religions here in Madison did for the community, okay?
Yeah.
And that's what gives me hope, you know? Not so much for like a return to like a certain time, but like we're continuously growing and there's still need for this kind of thing, you know? And look what this communal spirituality did for so many people during the pandemic, you know?
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
I'm not a big fan of the Catholic Church, but like I heard in like like Africa, India, like nuns and like religious institutions were like helping the poor immensely, okay? And I'm like, yeah, this is good. This is spirituality came out and helped us during the pandemic, you know?
Yeah.
How do you feel about that?
Oh, I think like religion is a source of great hope and community for many, many, many people.
Yeah.
And it's like any other tool, any other thing, like, yeah, people can use it poorly.
Yeah.
And to defend genocide and horrible things, but like
Slavery,
it can also give so much hope and purpose and meaning, and those are the things we need to keep going.
Yeah, and that's why I said this in the podcast before. I hate Nietzsche. Okay, I hate Nietzsche. I hate that guy.
Even he hated himself, so so you're good.
He's well. There's Nietzsche, then Freud, then Jung.
Yeah.
You know, it's evolution. You know.
Yes.
And then there's like other things I'd use for hope aside from the spirituality thing. I look at the people I have in my life. You know, the gratitude. I mean, I believe in God, and I believe God has brought people in my life that have like been so supportive of me. You know, focusing like there's something to be said. The mentality. I'm not saying it's completely wrong, but having the mentality, just this mentality that everything happens for a reason. You know, that mentality can like help you make sense of so much. You know, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, I really believe that we're here as humans to learn lessons, and everything good and bad is here to teach us something. So I do believe it's all part of a plan and a world that we're shaping together. Yeah.
And then again, like, you know, I mean, even this world goes to crap, I still feel like either we go to other planets, we land on Mars, you know, science gives us hope. Science fiction gives us hope.
Yes.
Look how much science fiction has given us hope. Star Trek, as much as I hate it, has given us such hope for the future, you know? And once again, do I think it's a bunch of techno jargon, space bullcrap? Do I hate their uniforms? Yes. Do I hate the shape of their ships? Yes. Do I hate their aliens? Yes. But it's the genuine message, a good one. Yes. Hope for the future, that we can achieve something greater, that we can overcome. Like in Star Trek, people don't work for money. They do jobs and careers and enter the military as a way of bettering themselves and bettering the universe. You know, I like that. I mean, I might not agree with like everything. What was Gene Roddenberry was saying, but you know, I still generally agree with him. He was a hopeful person for the future. You know. Now, do I think resource scarcity will ever become not a thing? No. The whole like we can make infinite resources. That's never gonna happen. But once again, we can get somewhere in between the crap we're in now and its ideal future in the future. You know.
Exactly.
And that's how I look at like everything. Like we're always gonna wind up in between, but we can make the best of the in between. You know.
Yeah, I really like that.
Yeah, and what's your favorite sci-fi saga that gives you hope? You're not a Trekkie, are you?
No.
Okay, we can still be friends.
Not as much. My dad's a huge Trekkie. I don't really watch that much sci-fi, but I mean probably Star Wars. Although I do kind of feel like it's like a sci-fi fantasy because it's really got good
obviously.
But
I mean that line from the end of Rise of Skywalker. It's not a navy, sir. It's just people. When the fleet of the galaxy's rebels shows up to this heart of the evil empire, And it's like the whole point of that scene was this isn't a military. This is all the freedom fighters and people of the galaxy mustering every ship they can find to bring an end to the Sith once and for all. And they're blowing like all these like makeshift like freighters and like civilian ships are destroying this armada of Star Destroyers. Which, and what I'm trying to say is, my first girlfriend who I was dating at the time, I watched a movie with her. She kind of said it this way, like she loves that line. It's not a Navy, sir. It's just people,
right?
And that people are what makes the difference, And that's something I've always loved about Star Wars. It's always the little guy that changes the world. It's the champions of diversity, It's the rebel few against the empire of oppression and conformity.
Exactly.
How do you feel about that?
Yeah, and I love that it's like there's never a point where it's hopeless. Like, there's always people who are willing to fight for, the cause.
The right things, yeah.
Yeah.
Now, yeah. I guess in the last two subjects we'll talk about for a handoff, last two questions. What are, ways, what are some, so you're an occultist, you know religions. What are practices you'd recommend, people to, build confidence and manifest healthier futures for themselves?
Well, I think, affirmations are really positive. So, I literally write with a marker on my mirror, different affirmations for my week.
Yeah.
Saying things out loud and writing them down is, powerful when you're trying to reshape your world. Gratitude practices, absolutely. Meditation in its various forms can be helpful. But
mantras.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing, though, is, humans need community. So find your community, whether that's through a sport or through an art or college or a job,
or a religious community.
A religious community. You need to find your people.
Yeah. And last subject, what do you think what is your ideal future the world could look like if we get everything taken care of? What do you think? What kind of hopeful future do you dream of for future generations, yourself, or future generations,
I think the biggest thing that I want to see is humans become less selfish and to, more genuinely care about each other. I think, if we could do that, then the sky's the limit. Then those things we see in Star Trek or Star Wars or a more bright future will be possible.
Yeah.
But, if it just stops being all about, me, and if we're actually able to show up in meaningful ways for one another.
For me, it's not hating people for different opinions. Diversity within unity,
Yes.
This is going to sound corny, and you can judge me all you want. I'd like, if, in this country alone, I'd like us to return to what the actual founding documents for this country are based on, okay? All people created equal in the eyes of their creator. The actual words of this document that well, once again, you might get a kick out of this. The founding fathers were Kabbalist.
Yeah.
Kabbalist, and they wrote one of the most meaningful, legal documents I've ever seen. How about we actually start living by that? You know what I mean? We create a society of diversity, respect, community, and not all selfishness. Maybe we do start becoming a more spiritual country,
Yeah.
Because honestly, this whole, it's all, I don't care about, anything but myself. I think that comes from Freud. That comes from Nietzsche, and I don't like that worldview. I like whimsy to come back in the world.
Yes.
I'd like whimsy to come back, I'd like creativity, community, and just innocence, child innocence, and kids. Kids stop growing up so fast,
Right. Growing up's overrated. I'm 30 and I'm a child, so.
I'm 28. I'm a man-child, all right? All right. Well, thank you for coming on the show. I appreciate it.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Till next time, folks. May the force be with you. Stay sane, and don't go crazy.